I'm joined in the studio by John and Rachel. I'm joined by Bea, and I'm joined by Catriona. And the whole area of fertility is on the agenda again. And it's a while since I've spoken to Siobhan Kehoe. And Siobhan, before we talk to the ladies and the gentlemen here in studio, so I'm not alone. Yesterday I was surrounded by women and babies. I have a male colleague here with me today, John. But you're very welcome, Siobhan. And it's not the first time you and I have spoken.
Yeah, thanks very much for asking me back, Alan, and it's great to be here. The reason that I'm here is just to give people hope. A lot of people that suffer from fertility problems feel very, very emotional, and they feel quite alone with it all. So I'm really grateful to the four. To Catriona, Rachel and John and Bea that have come here today to share their story on very short notice, and it's all about giving hope to people that have fertility issues.
And hope, and it's often the unspoken, isn't it? This is the unspoken. People are afraid to talk about it, to hear about it. I doubt if there's anybody in their own family and friends hasn't had somebody who's gone through this, who badly wants a child, and has had failed attempts, IVF attempts, and thankfully there's been a lot of successful people as well. Yeah,
absolutely. The statistic out there is 1 in every 6 couples has fertility problems, and but my whole thing is to try and empower people. People often think that they're very complicated, and the focus on one blood result, maybe an AMH level or an FSH level, or one diagnosis like PCOS or endometriosis or a semen analysis report. And my whole thing is this can change. You know, nature is on your side. Nature wants you to get pregnant. My whole thing is just to try and simplify it. It's all about getting the body back into balance and being specific, but simplifying it and encouraging people they can help themselves. So I try and hand the power back over to the people themselves. I just give them tips on what they need to do, but it's the people themselves that help themselves. I'm just a little messenger on the way, really, you know.
What is your background? I want to bring in some of the guests in the studio here with me now to find out their stories. What is your background?
I'm a registered midwife, and I'm a registered general nurse. I qualified as a midwife I can't actually remember. I think it's 98, and I worked in an IVF clinic, and I worked in a busy Dublin IVF clinic when it opened first. I worked in England. I worked out in Australia as a midwife, so I have a lot of experience from a midwifery point of view. I did a diploma course in obs and gynae with the consultant. With the medical consultant Trevor Wing last year, and but even with all the courses and all the experience that I have, sometimes I do believe it comes back to nature and back to basics.
Right. Let's not assume that everybody knows what IVF is. What does it actually mean, IVF?
IVF means in vitro fertilization.
So what is it?
And basically what it means is that they get the egg from the woman, the fast forward egg development to take out the egg from the woman, and they get the sperm from the man, and then the egg and sperm are put into a petri dish for anything from 3 to 5 days, and then the transfer of this embryo, or if it's a 5 day, it's a blastocyst, back into the uterus of the woman, hoping implantation will take place.
Right. Yeah. And it's a hope, or I mean, what are the stats that actually work? Well, the
statistics generally are 25% that IVF works, but the older the woman is, then the less chance. For instance, a 43-year-old woman, the statistic would be 3%. Some clinics might claim 5%, but it's generally 3% with a 43-year-old. So once the woman gets over 40, the statistics are very low. A lot of clinics have their statistics higher because they use donor egg, and which certainly is an option for people, and it can be a very good option. That, you know, it's a donor egg is somebody else's egg, usually from Eastern Europe, and my thing is to try and help the woman use their own eggs first, and to try and have their own genetic baby first.
So before I bring in the ladies and the gentlemen here in studio, is your theory, is your practice different to what you just explained there?
Well, my thing is first of all to try and encourage couples to have their own baby naturally. As I say, nature's on your side, and to try and give the best health to your baby. So if the couple gets pregnant naturally, the baby does tend to be healthier. IVF babies, all the statistics out there would show that.
How do you do that? How do you do that then? Is it a natural change in lifestyle or something?
Sorry, I actually forgot to say how I treat you. I use herbs and I use acupuncture. The herbs that I use, they're all just plant-based herbs. There's no mineral products, just no animal products used. They're just plants. We're regulated by the Irish Medicines Board. They're very, very safe. And also I use acupuncture and sometimes food supplements. And I send everyone to a nutritionalist just to make sure that their diet is up to optimum too, and to try and reduce stress levels. Stress would be a big aspect too.
Is there hope for everybody out there? I think listening to you, when you talk about IVF, as you get over the 40, you said 43. So is there a stage when the hope starts to fade? Or I don't want to give people false hope this morning, but do you believe there's couples listening to us at the moment who would dearly love a child and there is hope for them?
Well, I genuinely think, even from my own statistics, I mean, genuinely the vast, like even you can hear these people's stories this morning. These are people that just came in with just a day's notice, that there's so many people out there that have helped that, and it's not me even helping, it's the people have helped themselves. And so I absolutely believe that there's hope. I like, even on my website, I think it's 110 people have written testimonials. A lot of them were told that there was no hope. So my whole thing is just to give hope. But also, I'd like to mention, if a couple needs, inverted commas, needs the IVF, I do feel that it's fast forwarded. Like, for instance, typically a couple now that have been trying for 12 months, they are then referred to an IVF clinic. And so my thing is, if they need the IVF, yes, of course I can help them with the IVF, working by helping the egg quality and sperm quality,
so it's
and
a mixture of what you offer and what
so I can certainly help support with the IVF process also. Right. Yeah.
Before we take a short break, let's bring in Catriona. Good morning to you, Catriona.
Good morning, Alan.
What's your own story, Catriona?
I was married in 2011 to my husband Kevin, and we decided, after probably about a year and a half, we decided to try for a baby. We never assumed that we would have any problems. We were both aged 32 at the time. I did suffer from recurrent UTIs, and things weren't happening for us, and I felt that was probably the reason why. I never thought there was anything actually really wrong, but after about a year and a half, we decided to just go down the route of getting checked out. Everything came back fine with my husband. It turned out that my FSH was actually elevated at 24.5.
No, just you're giving me a lot of technical terms.
Yeah.
You can explain what you mean by FSH.
Well, the FSH, initially I was saying I was having the recurrent UTIs, and when I went then to have the FSH checked, when I just went to a clinic, it was a fertility clinic, my follicle stimulating hormone was 24.5. I might let Siobhan elaborate more on the technical terms of that.
You're telling us your story, and you're very open and honest to do so, and hopefully you're helping other people out there by doing so. So let's continue with your story as it unfolds.
Okay, well, basically it meant that I was premenopausal. There's another hormone they measure, it's called AMH, I think it's anti-Mullerian hormone, but that was 4, and that was very low for me.
And you're very young, aren't you?
I was 32 at the time.
Wow,
yeah.
And you were premenopausal?
Basically, yeah, I was, I think 16 or something, if I can be sure, or is around the normal level, AMH.
And the FSH should be below 12. No IVF clinic usually takes a woman on unless it's the follicle stimulating hormone, should be below 12, so 24.5.
All right.
Yeah, would be really, really high, yeah.
So difficult decisions, tough times.
So basically what I was told by the clinic was that IVF was my option. I was handed a leaflet, and I was devastated. When I went home, and then over the next few weeks, I looked up online, and when I actually looked up, there was no clinic, not only in Ireland but even in America, that would actually offer IVF for that level. So I wondered, why did they tell me IVF would work? When I looked into it more, it would have been IVF with a donor egg. That would have been my only option, had it even have worked.
So what happened?
So basically, as I said, I was very upset. My sister, who has three healthy children, no problems, she suggested acupuncture. So I started to look up, looked up again and searched online, came across a post about Siobhan. she was nearby. She was in a Scotty. I'm a nurse myself. I'm a general nurse, so I was a bit sceptical about going down that route because I deal with conventional or Western medicine every day. It wasn't in my, I suppose it's what I had done at 11 years at that stage. I'd never tried alternative medicine before, but yet I was willing to give anything a go because it frightened me, to be honest, when I looked up about the IVF, what you had to go through, and especially if you had to go down the egg route. So I phoned Siobhan one day, and I remember first time in a few weeks feeling hope. She told me she could help me. Just not to go down the route of IVF just yet, to attend her clinic, and she's a very busy clinic, but I got an appointment a couple of weeks later. So I went to Siobhan, and my husband came with me as well, and he was a bit sceptical too. Obviously didn't want me to get my hopes up too much in case it didn't work. So we met with Siobhan. She started me on raw herbs, boiled raw herbs, which weren't the nicest. It took me a while to get used to those, but after a while did it without even thinking, is to boil them and drink those. Took barley grass and spirulina as well, just supplements. And she also said that I was suffering from a spleen deficiency and liver qi stagnation, which basically meant that I was damp. I needed to walk, I was eating. I would have been relatively healthy most of the time, but anyway, I needed to eat more warm foods as opposed to colder foods. Went to a nutritionist, just one off appointment with a nutritionist, and I was amazed at how much I actually could eat after attending her.
So after all this, when did you become pregnant then?
Basically then Sean told us, my husband, just to point out that he also took just the herb capsules and then spirulina and barley grass just to support our chances of conceiving. Siobhan told me in 3 months' time to get my FSH repeated, but I never got to have it repeated because within 10 and a half weeks I fell pregnant naturally.
Wow, we're going to have to take a short break. There's so much to talk about this. We're going to let this run over a little bit over 11 as well, because I'm sure we're getting a lot of comments coming in as well. Got to take a short commercial break. Thank you for sharing that story with us, Catriona. When we come back, we'll come back to Bea.
Thank you.
And we also have John and Rachel as well, but we'll stick with this because there's a bit of reaction to it. There's some questions coming in about men and low sperm count as well, so we'll stay with this after this break.
South East Radio's morning mix. Chat, news and your views. Alan Corcoran.
It's your Friday morning mix, and we're going to stay with the whole area of fertility, even just after the 11 o'clock news as well, because there's still two more real life stories to go through, and then come back for a summary with Siobhan. Just before we move away from you, Catriona, I have to tell you this: there's a good news to this, more good news. This is your second pregnancy, because what you just described for us there was your first pregnancy, and you have a little girl, is that right?
I have a little girl.
And she's 3.
Yeah, she was 3 in July. Amy, big girl of our house, the boss, but that's why I came here today. Siobhan asked me the other day. I'm pregnant now, so I get a bit emotional. I'm actually on my second pregnancy now through going to Siobhan. Yeah, I'm 34 weeks at the moment. Same thing, I went to Siobhan, took the herbs, took the barley grass, followed the diet, took the spirulina, and 34 weeks, thank God, healthy pregnancy. But I just do want to point out that I was
UTIs, urinary tract infections.
Urinary tract infections, which I know all women get them, and it's just part of life and get on with it. But I was taking an antibiotic every month nearly for a while before I attended Siobhan, and it was really, it was starting to affect. I was missing days in work, which I wouldn't normally. It was debilitating really. So once I changed my diet, they all stopped. I think I've had one, and that's in almost 4 years now.
Right.
So, which going from 1 a month to that was a huge thing for me now. That alone, and beside obviously along with conceiving naturally, but just that I wanted to point that out as well.
Thanks for sharing your story this morning. Now, John and Rachel, we have John in studio with us as well. Rachel, what's your story? What happened?
Hi, Alan. Thanks for having us.
Not at all. Pleasure.
We got married in 2014. We're together since we were in school, 9 years. So then we wanted the big wedding, and then our dream of starting a family. But in our wildest dreams, we didn't think it would be as hard as what it was. After about 6 months, I started to get a little impatient, but that's me as a person anyways. I kind of want everything done yesterday. And I went to my GP, and she said, Rachel, you're young, give it time. But I pressed, and I asked to be referred to a gynae. And I had all the tests carried out, everything was fine. So John went for a semen analysis. That was February 2015. It was suboptimal. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't good either. There was some morphology problems and a bit of viscosity issues. So she put me on Clomid for 3 months. It's kind of, I suppose, it stims the eggs. It kind of gives you a better chance of conceiving, but it wouldn't be anyway as vigorous as IVF or IUI or anything. So after 3 months, we still hadn't any joy. So my own gynae recommended a clinic in Cork that she had patients who had success there. So we went back and John had a repeat semen analysis, which it was actually worse. The morphology was worse again, and the viscosity was, I suppose, worse, for the better word. So they recommended us to go straight to ICSI.
What's ICSI?
It's a form of IVF. It's where they inject the sperm into the egg as opposed to leaving it fertilise in a petri dish. So we did our first round in October of 2015. We were over the moon. We got our positive test. Thought, I can't believe it worked on the first go, but we miscarried 2 weeks later. We took the positive out of it that it had worked. I could get pregnant and started to plan for our second cycle. We did our second cycle in February of 2016. For some reason, I didn't respond as well the first time, and the cycle was cancelled just before egg collection. Now, I was devastated because I had done the full round of IVF drugs, which is not easy. And we planned again for July of that year. So, to our absolute delight, we got to 9 weeks. We thought we were plain sailing. All our dreams had come true, but our 9-week scan showed there was no heartbeat.
Okay. Wow. I'm going to have to hold it there for a second. I'm going to ask the listeners to stay with me. I want to come back to your story after the news, and then come on to Bea's story, and then come back to Siobhan. You've left us hanging with a very poignant moment in your lives. We want to get John's reaction as well. So stay with us. We'll be back with lots more after 11. At the moment, we have a number of questions. We're overrunning time-wise a little bit. Just before the news at 11, we broke in the middle of John and Rachel's story. And Rachel, if you can pick up back where you were, because I'm sure people were sort of spellbound listening to you, and then we had to stop for the news, so apologies for that.
No problem.
But just without going through the full story again, just take us where you were, because you had had several treatments, hadn't you?
Yeah, we were on our second IVF round, Alan, and we'd finally got over, I suppose, the mark from the previous miscarriage, and we went to our 9-week scan, and to our devastation there was no heartbeat. So we had to wait a grueling 12 days for a D&C. I thought at the time I was the only person in the planet going through this. I suppose it was devastating, but we picked ourselves back up and we planned for IVF number 3. And the clinic advised us to use, we had one frozen embryo left, and they said, you'd be mad to pay money for a new cycle, would you not try that? Now, we had implanted 2 all along, and because we'd only one, I was already, I suppose, pessimistic before I'd even started, but I said we'd give it a go. Even just the cost factor, it was a lot cheaper, but we tried to use it twice and I didn't respond to the meds. So they recommended to get injections in from the United States, but there was a waiting list for it. Mm-hmm. So I said I didn't want to do that, so I started to look up other clinics. So we came across a clinic in the Czech Republic, and we flew out for 2 days in December of that year, and we'd planned to go back in January for our 3rd cycle. So we did that, everything went great, the usual story again, positive tests, but we miscarried at 7 weeks. Now at this stage I said there has to be something wrong, nobody has that much bad luck. So me being me, I wouldn't rest until I got answers, so I came across a miscarriage clinic in Poland. So we went out in February of this year for 2 days, and we had every test under the sun for under €1,000. I'd highly recommend that to anyone who was in our shoes. We got every test done, and to our, I suppose, disappointment, nothing showed up. We were hoping that there'd be something there, but that it'd be fixable. So I contacted the clinic in Prague and told them, and they said, to be honest, at this stage, Rachel, your best chance of a live birth is to go down the donor route. So we were, I suppose, disappointed, but with so much love to give and a good home to give to a child, it didn't matter to us how it came into the world. So we went back in April of this year, and we had 2 grade A blastocyst donor embryos implanted, which is donor egg and donor sperm. We thought taking both of us out of the picture would be the answer to our prayers. So same story again, positive test. Everything went okay for about 2 weeks, and I was awoken at about 4 a.m. one night with a massive bleed. And I said, here we go, same thing again. So we went to the A&E department and they did a scan. And because my beta HCG level, which is the pregnancy hormone, was so high, and there was still a sac and a fetal pole, they said, you had twins, both of them implanted, but you've lost one. So we were disappointed, but we said, okay, this is our miracle baby now, this is going to be our child. And after 2 weeks, again, I had a massive bleed. I ended up going in for an emergency D&C. So at this stage, it was the first time, I think, in a year and a half where I said, you know, we're out of luck now. I've nowhere to turn. We'd crossed all options. And I got talking to a lady whose daughter had success with Siobhan. Now, I'd never heard of her, I'll be honest. But I spent that night on the internet and I couldn't believe the stories I'd read. So the next morning I sent, I suppose it'd be a feel sorry for me email. I put all our journey in an email, and Siobhan herself rang me the following afternoon. And the first thing that struck her was my age. She thought I was a lot older because of how many IVF rounds we had done. And I went down myself and I'd met her because John was working, and I got the ball rolling with the herbs, and
it worked.
It worked. The first thing I said to John...
You're pregnant now, aren't you?
Yeah, nearly 19 weeks. Yeah.
Fingers, everything crossed for you, okay. John, you've listened, I mean, what you've shared with us, Rachel, before and after the news is quite remarkable and so open, and I know all of you are helping people, because I'm seeing it here on the text line in front of me. It's nice to get a male perspective on this. The whole area of semen and the whole area of people wondering, you know, is everything in working order? You've been through this. So we've spoken to the women, we've spoken to the men as well, but let's look directly at the men. So your own story.
Yeah, well, I suppose, Alan, when we got married, the general thought was that we were so young that it would come naturally to us, that it would only be a matter of time before we'd conceive a baby. And then, like Rachel touched on, when a couple of months had passed by and there was no success, not even a touch of luck, we decided to look into things, and Rachel had her tests done. I went to a clinic close to home and just got a semen analysis done just to see where we were at and what I was looking into. It came back suboptimal, and the first thing that we saw was their morphology issues, which was that some of the sperm wouldn't be viable to swim for an egg. Some were broken tails, broken necks, two tails, different kinds of things. The viscosity, which is the breakdown once it goes towards the egg, wasn't good at all.
Right.
So, but they said, the one thing they did say to me was that they had seen worse, that it might just take me a bit longer to conceive naturally with a sample like this. So we thought, right, that's still some hope. Still, afterwards then, a couple of months went by, we had no luck again, same old story. So again, Rachel went back, we were referred to a clinic down in Cork. We went down, we met with them. They said they do a semen analysis, so I had a semen analysis done down there. As Rachel touched on, again, it came back worse. And for me, myself now, I'm very laid back, happy-go-Larry. Nothing gets me down, but this was kind of a sucker punch.
Yeah, of
for
course.
me.
It was affecting you. Yeah, big time.
Thinking, right, usually, so it's my fault. Straight away we can't get pregnant. So I'm thinking then, right, it was abnormal this time, which is far worse than suboptimal. The viscosity was a lot worse. The count was still okay, but with the other two factors, you're on a road to nowhere. So then we got talking with the doctors and consultants down there, and they said the only option for us was ICSI, which, as Rachel said, is them injecting the sperm directly into the the egg, because with my sample we weren't going to get anywhere with doing IVF itself. So we planned our start for our IVF journey, and we done our couple of cycles, and we were getting nowhere with him.
Right.
We went over to Poland, the clinic. We had all our tests done, hoping that something would happen.
It didn't happen. So where did you come into the equation then with Siobhan? So how does it affect?
After Rachel went to Siobhan, and she came back and told me, and I could genuinely see when I came home from work, she was buzzing. She was hopping around the place. Siobhan said this, Siobhan said that. were not, all hope was not lost. So we said, right, we arranged to go down to Siobhan again, and I came with Rachel this time. I arranged that it would be suitable for when I was available to go as well. So we went down. I told Siobhan
your story,
my story.
Yeah.
So Siobhan recommended that we go on the spirulina, the barley grass, and
you as well,
the herbs. Well,
to improve your sperm count.
Mostly, I think,
yeah.
the women. But I decided, just for moral support as well as anything, I said I'll go on whatever Rachel is going on, and we'll just do it together. It'll be easy for the two of us to do it. She gave me a solution as well for the viscosity of the sperm. It was basically before we went to try and conceive.
Yeah.
For a week leading up to it, take a spoon of cough bottle medicine once a day for 7 days before we try and conceive for a child. And we did that.
And you conceived naturally?
Well, first of all, I went back and had a repeat semen analysis done just to see did it work, and everything was perfect.
That's incredible.
Everything.
I need to come to Bea. Listen, like the comments coming in are amazing. Like we have Angie says, "Oh my God, my heart is going out to John and to Rachel as well. I hope it's going to be a great outcome for them. I will pray to Saint Martha every night for them, and they should pray to her also. Thank you for airing my views." That's Angie. Bea, your story. You're the final story, and you've been waiting patiently to talk to us. So, what is your story?
Right, bit of a roller coaster ride. I suppose I went to Siobhan back in 2012. I met my husband when I was 21. We got married 7 years later. Didn't want children straight away, but we did want children. So when we started trying for children, it was a bit of a disappointment that there was nothing happening. So we went for investigation probably a year down the line and realised that there was a few things wrong. I'd be a bit like the other two girls, the same constitution. I had damp heat. I would have reoccurring kidney infections. But on investigation at my first IVF clinic, they found that I had blocked fallopian tube and that I also had PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome. One of my hormones was higher than the other, but I also had clotting issues. So the only chance for us was IVF, we were told. Obviously we were devastated, but we were willing to go down that road. We did 4 rounds of IVF with 2 different clinics in Dublin, and none of them were successful. So we were getting to the stage where we were thinking, were we ever going to have a child? Heard about Siobhan. My mum had heard a previous interview on Southeast Radio and had mentioned Siobhan to me, and I looked her up, went to see her, and couldn't believe what she was saying to me. She had my whole medical history down in probably 5 minutes. She told me what I needed to do, and I was so willing to do it. I got pregnant within 9 days of seeing Siobhan after 4 failed IVFs and after trying absolutely everything. Unfortunately, it was an ectopic pregnancy. We lost that baby, and I was getting to the stage where time wasn't on our side. I was, coming to my late 30s, and I was thinking, right, is there any other options for us? I was still willing to stay with Siobhan and do the Chinese medicine, do the natural route, because the synthetic route really didn't suit my constitution. And a family member in the UK offered to carry our babies for us. So we went down the surrogacy route with Siobhan's help. So Siobhan prepared my body with acupuncture and herbs. We implanted 2 grade A embryos into my cousin Nikki in the UK, and we got identical twins from that pregnancy, which I have Siobhan to thank for, because only 3% of twin pregnancies are identical twins. It's because of the quality of the embryo. Yet I had been told by an IVF clinic that my embryos were probably not of sufficient quality because my eggs weren't implanting after 4 failed IVFs.
But now you're pregnant again yourself, yeah?
But now I'm pregnant myself. So after all that we were told, and we've 2 healthy baby boys, Sebastian and Rowan, who are just about to be 2. I went to see Siobhan before I went on holidays to get some herbs and have some acupuncture. And within 2 weeks, I was pregnant. I phoned Siobhan from Spain. She couldn't believe it. Considering I've only got 1 tube because I lost my tube when I had the ectopic pregnancy. My chances were lower, obviously, than anybody else's of conceiving. And I'm 39 years of age with twin boys at home. who are, you know, absolute little miracle babies, and we've got a third.
What stage are you at again? What did you tell me?
I'm 30 weeks pregnant at the moment. Right, yeah, okay. So I'm due in December. Never thought it would happen naturally for us. Siobhan was convincing me that it would. I've subsequently sent 14 people to Siobhan after I've told them my story. Going back from 2012 when I first went to see Siobhan, and all 14 women that I sent to Siobhan have had their babies. So I believe in Siobhan.
I've gone way over time, but I think on the basis of what we've heard here, your story is fascinating. All the stories are fascinating. I have to wrap it up for the moment, Siobhan, but we have a little plan. We have a little scheme, Karen and myself, and we're going to work on it. So basically, I need you to summarise it. So for people who are texting in, worried about low sperm count, worried about this, worried about that, just summarise it for us. Where to next?
People aren't complicated. And just to summarise even Rachel and John's story, within 5 weeks of them taking herbs and taking their own power back, they were pregnant. Catriona, 10 and a half weeks, she was told she needed a donor egg. 10 and a half weeks she was pregnant. Rachel and John, after 4 failed IVFs, including a donor embryo, within 5 weeks pregnant. She's now 19 weeks pregnant. Bea just came back, then took some herbs, acupuncture, 2 weeks later pregnant after 4 failed IVFs. People think they're complicated. They generally aren't complicated. My thing is to simplify it and to help empower people and give them hope.
What's your website?
The website I have is called fertilitytreatment.ie, and I'll be moving my premises actually to the AIB up in Bunclody the end of this month. But people come from all over. Right. I generally don't need to see people often, maybe only once every 2 months, but I can tell them a lot on the first visit. I can tell them a lot, you know.
Right, I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us live in the studio.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and can I just say one more thing? I'm the mother of 3 wonderful daughters, Katie, Millie and Sarah, and I know what it feels like to be a mother, to be a parent, and I really hope I can give, you know, that joy, to help give that joy to someone else. You know, that's what I'm.
Right, and your contact details are what? What are they?
My contact details, the office number is 05392 70725, and then the website, as I say, is called fertilitytreatment.ie.
Thank you very much for joining us.
For asking me here today. Thank you,
We're going to turn to financial matters in just a second, and the safety of your PIN number. We'll link up with Neil Hughes from Baker Tilly Hughes Blake.